Jesse, if you are ready, would you like to do a bit of an intro? Because probably a light intro from me, and then we'll dive straight into it if everyone's good to go.
Sure. Actually, the second slide of the presentation is an intro to who I am and
Yeah,
my background a little bit. So
do it.
I'll share my screen and we'll just get started here.
Sounds great.
Perfect. Great. Yeah. So as Tom mentioned, I run community at Zapier, and today I really want to talk to everybody about what it was like building a community at Zapier. We're not really that old with our community. We're about 1 year officially, 2 years unofficially. I'll kind of get into that in a bit, and also how we kind of define and use some of our moderation touch points, as we call them. So like Tom said, my name is Jesse Parker. I'm the head of community. I actually joined Zapier back in 2014 as the 8th employee. I was the second support hire, and I've touched really kind of almost every sector at the company prior to landing in my current role as head of community. I've led customer success. I've been a product manager. I've worked in internal operations. I also created all of the content and programming and training and things like that for our Certified Experts program. Super passionate about no-code operations, which is why I'm so grateful to be here today talking to y'all. And I share in Zapier's mission, which is to democratize automation and really make it easy and accessible for anyone to use. So as I mentioned, I'd like to talk through really a bit about how our team moderates while also establishing our community, and also how we're working to reduce some of our thread touch points, but also while still providing kind of like a high quality experience to our members. And as a bonus at the end, I'll share some automated workflows that we have set up related to community as well, because I'm sure you're all interested in hearing more about how we utilize Zapier in the mix. But before I do that, I think it's helpful to kind of quickly chat through our community journey and what we've learned from our successes and failures and kind of how they led to where we are now. So prior to the official community that we have now, so if you've checked out our community or if you haven't, it's community.zapier.com. I actually started our experts program at Zapier, like I mentioned before, and we kind of started that community in a Facebook group because that's where a lot of our experts and our users were gathering. A lot of these folks had already created their own groups, their own Zapier-based groups to ask questions and share tips and tricks. And we also had kind of like a mostly unmoderated Zapier-owned Facebook group that was open to everyone, that saw a decent amount of engagement as well. But we really, the company really wasn't using that in an official manner. And then when we started the experts group, we saw some really great engagement, but there were a few downsides to that experience. One of them was that a lot of the threads and questions were easy to lose. And just the nature of the group and how it was set up resulted in a lot of the same or similar questions being posted, week after week, because there wasn't an easy way to categorize and search. Another big issue for us was that we didn't own any of our content. So, if Facebook really wanted to, and I wouldn't put this past them, they could have advertised a competitor, right? Anywhere in the UI. We also didn't have any rights or permissions to reuse user-generated content within our own product or really anywhere throughout the customer experience. And one of the biggest benefits of a user community that we see is that we can utilize that helpful user-generated content to then surface that and help other users have a better experience with our product and our brand. So because those other groups were kind of open to everyone and anyone, it was really kind of difficult to keep up with our own engagement in the experts group because we had it limited to just a group of folks that we've trained and certified. So it's much more appealing for those folks to go to those other groups and engage because there were just more folks. So moving from there, while engagement was doing all right in the experts Facebook group, wasn't where we really wanted it to be, we realized that we needed more structure and control. And we needed ways to be able to have our experts quickly find answers to questions without having to ask multiple times. And we really needed an official spot to post news and like beta opportunities from the company and about our product to our best users. And we really needed the space to be easy to set up and manage, and it had to be low cost as well. At this point, our experts program was still a total experiment. So we didn't really have full company backing or resources to invest into a platform. And Discourse, we found, was like really, really affordable, super easy to set up. And we knew a lot of other companies in the SaaS space that were using this as a community solution as well. So we felt pretty confident that we were going to be able to set up a familiar space for our users to navigate. So in the second quarter of 2019, we decided, after having Discourse operating for probably around 6 to 7 months, that we were going to stand up a more robust Zapier branded forum and really expand our access out from our experts to all of our users. However, we weren't going to dive right into linking to the community, promoting it within the product, or indexing it on Google. We really wanted to have a slow rollout so we weren't overwhelmed as a team of one and then soon to be two after. So we had to really make a decision if we wanted to build or buy. And we felt that, you know, in an effort for speed and to keep resources within other areas of the company, that we were going to choose to purchase and stand up a third-party platform rather than to build something custom, especially being that we were so new and we really didn't have a full grasp of our needs at this point. So in order to support a lot of the technical needs that we have, as you can imagine, at Zapier, we have a pretty high standard when it comes to API endpoints and documentation and things like that. We made a decision to move forward with vanilla forums, and we spent the next 9 months, 9 months or so, standing up the platform and a small team, ensuring that everything was kind of going to meet the specific needs that we had, growing a community at Zapier, which is kind of a unique setup because we're not just supporting Zapier, we're also supporting, in an essence, all of the other Zaps that we support on Zapier as well. So as we expanded from a team of 1 to 3, we really kind of started to learn about what doesn't work and what does work best about moderating as a team. And at that point, unfortunately, we realized that our needs had changed again, and that vanilla forums was really no longer a fit for how we were scaling and growing and how we were choosing to moderate. And in particular, we really needed more granular moderation controls because our moderation processes were a bit more involved than I think their typical client. And another reason that we decided to move away from the platform was that in order to make any real changes that we needed, we either had to rope in members of the vanilla forums dev team, or we had to rope in members of our own Zapier dev team. And the process of kind of getting ourselves into a sprint cycle cost us too much in time. You know, one of our goals from the very beginning of setting up community and growing this team, and one of my goals personally, because I'm so passionate about, you know, the no code space and being able to do everything by yourself, has really been to have our team be as nimble and autonomous as possible, you know, customizing and iterating quickly with minimal effort and outside resources. Like whatever we could do ourselves, we really wanted to do. We wanted that control. So after dozens of hours of research, several interviews with community leaders, and a really in-depth tooling analysis, and many back and forth calls with like so many top community platform providers, we decided to move forward with InsideIt. And our main reasons for this decision were based around really, you know, the drag and drop customization options that they had a robust API so we could utilize an InsideIt Zapier app for automation. They had just a really simple, easy to use, beautiful UI. They had moderation controls that were fit for scaling a team. And we thought that they had an incredibly, you know, high level of customer service throughout the entire sales and onboarding process. And customer service is a value that we hold very near and dear to our hearts at Zapier. We really want to be the leader in that space so we can appreciate when we're able to deal with a team that also very clearly values that. In fact, their CEO even stepped away from a family dinner the night before we made our decision to hop on a call with us to ensure that, we had what we needed and all of our questions were answered prior to presenting the tooling analysis with the stakeholders on our end. So, we were really impressed then at that level of quality, and we continue to be impressed with their team as we navigate our relationship. And something that's an extra bonus is that InsideIt had really a ton of resources and white papers that we were able to utilize as a brand new community team. And that really helped us set up the proper content and programming structure that we needed to be successful. As I mentioned, I had never, stood up a community team before. It was really just, my experience in the experts program and kind of falling into building that community. So this was helpful for me as well as a leader who maybe needed a bit more assistance and direction and where to go. So this right here is the Zapier community as it stands today. And we've got some quick links at the top for new members. We've got some featured posts and articles that you see there and other opportunities that we've been working with our marketing teams to help coordinate. We've got some quick links to the main categories. And then, we kind of dive into some recent posts, some unanswered posts with some gamification elements on the side, like you're seeing here, the leaderboards and some of our V1 badges. So now that you know a bit more about our journey with building community, because it was certainly a long one with a lot of changes and realization of our needs, I wanted to share a bit about how we moderate, in particular, our thread touch points and how we kind of navigate keeping certain touch points while trying to reduce others to balance the workload of our team with also providing a quality customer experience, at least while we're in the establishment phase of our community. Tom, you were kind enough to say that we have a large community at Zapier, and while we have a very large user base, I still feel like our community itself is small. So that's why we're doing this balancing act of trying to build it in the right way and provide just the level of quality that we need to. So when we started out, we had a total of 6 touch points, which means that every time a new topic was posted, from the time it was written to the time it was closed, we were checking it 6 times. So we would first audit the thread for the category and the tag and the appropriateness, making sure it didn't go against our, at the time, unwritten code of conduct. Checking in on the thread after 24 hours when there are no replies and making sure that that person always received a reply. We never want people to feel like they came to community and it was a waste of their time, right? And they didn't get any help. So that was important for us. We would check new replies, and then we would check more replies and sometimes a third reply, since our threads tend to have an average of 2.5 replies on them. Then we'd also check unresolved threads for a selected answer. And if there was one, we would mark it. If not, we would kind of navigate how to answer that. And then we would make sure to close the thread after 90 days to prevent any stale topics. So this is a bit different than I think how other communities handle things. I think typically moderators and community managers are mostly paying attention to flagged threads. And our goal is definitely to move towards that eventually, right? Because this model does not scale. There is no way that when everybody is in the Zapier community that we're going to be able to keep an eye on every single reply happening on every thread. It's just unrealistic. But because we're still building, that sort of awareness and trust with our members, it's really, really important that we provide a higher level of service to make our members feel like when they come to community that they're going to find solutions and they're going to be acknowledged by either a member of our team or a certified expert, or even one of our community moderators, which actually tend to be comprised of some of our top tier certified experts. So right now, before moving to the traditional flag post model, we're still trying to provide, again, that level of quality while also attempting to reduce our thread touch points to 1 so our team can just work more efficiently. And here are also some of the outcomes that we're after in using this model, right? We want to make sure, like I said before, everyone gets at least 1 reply. We want to acknowledge the issue. We want to be able to point them in the right direction. We want to be able to solve as many questions as possible so that our members know that community is a trusted source of solutions. And we want them to know that we're dedicated to helping them. We want to make sure there are no stale topics in community, right? That's no fun when you're looking for an answer, you land on something and you realize, oh, the last reply went unresolved and it happened 6 months ago. What's going on here? And we want to ensure that issues are flagged for us to review and handle so that our community remains a really helpful, positive, and respected resource for everyone. So we realized that we could still achieve these outcomes and begin reducing our thread touch points. So the first change that we made was that we combined steps 1 to 3 to only check new topics after 24 hours for the category and tag appropriateness. And then, if there is no reply on the thread, to just reply and acknowledge that and send them in the right direction. The second change was actually thanks to an automated rule feature that InsideIt added to auto-close topics after they've been inactive for 90 days. So that completely, removed that responsibility off of our plate, which was wonderful. And while this was happening in the background, we were really trying to focus on growing our external moderator program so that, we really have more help from the community of addressing these new threads. Therefore, hopefully resulting in reducing that number of 0 reply threads that our internal team was kind of having to moderate and reply to ourselves. So the next changes we made were to address questions that didn't have selected answers. So first, we actually set up a monthly audit meeting where the entire team and our top tier external moderators get assigned a bucket of threads without selected answers that were published 60 to 90 days ago, where the last activity was more than a month ago. So we still want to be within that 90-day window, but they've been kind of sitting there long enough where it hasn't gotten attention and we want to check if there's an answer there. So our job is really to go through those and mark as many answers as we're able to. Oftentimes the original poster has a solution, gets an answer, but just forgets to mark it, right? Or sometimes, a summary of the solution is needed because it happens through 2 or 3 replies. So we'll go ahead and provide that and mark that as the best answer as well. Next, we have a triage role that actually focuses on trying to answer or solved unanswered unclosed posts where the published date again was 60 to 90 days ago. And this really helps reduce our audit time. But this is something that will probably roll up to the responsibility of our external moderators and take away from our internal team so we can focus our time on things like content and programming. And then what you see to the right here is that InsideIt it just launched another feature that allows you to set up an automation to automatically email the original poster of a thread that has replies and ask them, if there's a best answer that they can mark after a certain period of time. So that is super helpful for our team as well and really helps reduce that audit time and the responsibilities of that role. Wherever we can use automation, we certainly want to. And then from here, it's really a balancing act, like I was saying before, of knowing when to reduce our internal involvement, but still offer assistance in the right places at the right times. So, eventually we're going to be able to remove auditing those new replies and be able to rely on our members to flag things that might be against our rules and guidelines. And as we continue to build out our external moderation program, we can really rely on these folks to audit new topics, right? And escalate any issues. And I want to just put a big disclaimer on this and a big bow to say that I don't claim to know all of the answers or if this is the best solution, but it's something that's worked really, really well for our team. And I haven't found a lot of resources for how to handle thread touch points and things like that on the internet. So I really wanted to take the time to tell y'all a little bit about our story and share our experience and our method around this. And of course, I wouldn't leave this part out. So in order for us to continue scaling and operating as a small team, we had to make sure that we had an InsideIt Zapier app to work with. That's a requirement for just about any vendor that we work with, right? We want to do more with the tools we have, and we want to empower everyone at the company to be able to build solutions. So I'll briefly go over some of the automations that we have set up on our account. I can't, walk you through them entirely due to privacy reasons, but I'll walk you through generally what they do so you can get an idea, and then we'll open some things up for Q&A. All right, so the first automation that I have here is adding new users to a community Airtable. So basically what this workflow does is we take any new users, any new members, I should say, that join community. We run them through our own internal Zapier app. And that will go ahead and pull their attributes, what's their industry and their vertical and the pricing plan they're on, and, all of these different data points about them. And then that will actually send them to an Airtable where we can kind of sort by attribute and set up reporting to better understand, okay, who is our member base? What are these people wanting to do in here? Where do they come from? How experienced are they with using Zapier? So that helps inform a lot of the decisions that we need to make around content and programming. The second one is definitely a time saver and a bit fun. So basically, when somebody registers in community with a Zapier.com email address, we have the Zap making an API call to InsideIt to grant them a particular staff role so that they have, posting permissions in the news and announcements category and a couple of other permissions. And then we post to Slack to celebrate that another Zappian has joined our own community, which is pretty exciting. The next one is around bugs that surface. So bugs, feature requests, all that is inevitable in community. So when we're able to locate and identify a bug that surfaces in community, we can use internal moderation tags in InsideIt, and we can trigger off of that to create a ticket in Help Scout, which is our ticketing system that we use, to link to the thread and then prompt the team to log the issue and link to that new thread, so that whenever our development team, our engineers actually resolve the bug, they know to then update that thread, and we can kind of close the loop in community. That's really important to us. We don't like to leave things open-ended in community, and we want people to know that when we say we're going to circle back on something, that we're absolutely going to circle back on something. The next one down there are around reported posts. This one's pretty simple. Basically, when a post is flagged or reported, InsideIt has a feature you can send that to an email address. So we just notify a Zapier email address to then trigger a message to our moderation Slack channel to make the entire team aware of big issues. Even if the whole team's not on a role where they're handling the reported issues, it's good to keep everybody in the loop about some of the big things going on. And then that other workflow, the last one at the bottom, our spam prevention tracker, that's a bit of a beefier one. So InsideIt does have spam prevention tools, but we are really passionate about trying to eliminate spam in the community. And as we're waiting for more resources to kind of do this on an automatic basis, we actually have this Zap that checks for a new user in community. It will look them up in Zapier. Then it will look up their community join date and their Zapier join date and what the time is right now. And then if the signups and the posts that they're making in community are within seconds of one another, it will actually alert our community Slack channel and let us know about a potential uncaught spammer. So this is just another way that we can keep spammers and unwanted behavior and engagement out of our community. So I'll open up the floor. I know I've shared a lot with you from our journey to how we manage providing quality and reducing touch points in community and some of the automations that we have. And I'd love to hear any questions that y'all have and see how I can help out.
So I think I'll lead with the first one. That was great. It's good to see how you'll handle it there. First one, is there anything you found that shouldn't be automated?
Probably replies to threads from our team. Users, members, the community, right, can pick up on when something feels a little bit robotic, right? We like to use automation to save time, but we don't like to use it as a replacement for being human. And community is all about relationships and connections and that human element, right? So we wouldn't want to have any kind of automation that took the genuine human nature out of our interactions with our community members.
Got it. Have another one here. So you were an early employee of Zapier. How has the relationship changed between you or members of the team and the community members as it scaled?
Well, so many things have changed at Zapier since I've joined, but our community is still, really, really new. So I can't say that too much has changed in regards to my relationship with the team and the company and community, other than the fact that I think the company is realizing how essential and important community is to furthering our mission of democratizing automation and for helping our users share things with us, share things with one another, helping us to share with our users. And I think, I think it's really just kind of like solidifying the fact that community is a necessary part of our product experience, especially with a product like Zapier. I mean, there are so many different ways and that you can use Zapier, and so many different people that are using Zapier, and it's really nice to be able to bring those folks together and find out new ways. And just connecting people with the similar interests and watching them inspire one another has been wonderful. But I know that's a little side tangent off of your original question, so I can dig into things that have changed more if you'd like me to, but I don't think it would be centered really around community because it's so new. Yeah.
Let's do it. I think it's definitely worth mentioning.
For sure. So, gosh, when I joined the company, it was so small. We weren't on Slack. Slack had just come out maybe a couple of months after I've joined. And we only had such a minimal amount of meetings. Planning was easy. Hiring was easy. Our retreats felt less like conferences and more like small family reunions. And, we cooked together and we told life stories by the fire and things like that. So that's something I'm really grateful for about being able to have joined the company so early, is I feel very connected to the founders and the mission and some of the folks that are leading all areas of the org at Zapier that you just kind of don't get now. It's still wonderful to join Zapier, and I think that there's so many benefits of scaling. Like, we're more organized, our processes in place, our processes are better in place. We have a wonderful operations team that makes sure everybody's taken care of. We've got great learning and development resources. When we go to a retreat, even if it doesn't feel like a family reunion, they still find a way of helping everybody feel really connected to one another and providing a lot of opportunities to create that relationship. So I think Zapier's done a really wonderful job of scaling our own internal community and our own internal culture. But the one thing that you do miss out on from the early stages are just a lot more autonomy and, connection and things like that.
That's a really good point. Jackson has a question. It says that Zapier's always been a remote company. What advice would you give to remote companies trying to build a community, especially amongst internal teams?
Okay, so Jackson, if I'm understanding right, like building community within the company, is that right? When you're not exactly remote, or when you are remote?
When you are remote, I think you're talking about. So rather than like building the community when you're all like together, I guess, to always fully distributed like Zapier's been.
Got it. Yeah, there are quite a few things that we do at Zapier to try to keep that closeness. I mean, I know this isn't necessarily a remote solution, but those retreats that we have, like, they really act as a wonderful way of creating those bonds. Like, there really is nothing that can truly replace that in-person connection, but we don't need it 100% of the time. So while we're not at retreats, other things that we do, we have like pair calls and things like that, where we can, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Donut, right? Donut, the Slack add-on, where it pairs two people to talk to one another randomly, and you can have these conversations with one another. So we do that. We've got a coaching program at Zapier, so you can learn how to be a coach. You can sign up to have a coach, and you can kind of facilitate connections that way. Slack is just a huge way that we build community at Zapier. We not only have, our channels for support and marketing and projects and things like that, but we have the longest list of fun channels that, I've ever seen in my life. We have fun cats, fun dogs, fun wellness, fun preppers, you know what I mean? Like, whatever kind of fun activity you want to talk about, like, your people are likely at Zapier also wanting to talk about it. So Slack is a great way that we've been able to help people find their people. And I'm sure that I'm missing several other things.
No,
I
I like that. I'm just looking on our Slack, and I've got a feeling now we are slightly short of fun channels, which I'm slightly concerned about. I have to go and add several and fill them with cat photos or funny memes. So yeah, I like that.
Once we established, like, we went through a long iteration process of establishing like a naming convention for our Slack channel. So we know that if we have WG, that's like a working group, right? It's a temporary channel. It's not going to stay there forever. It's just to like gather people in conversation around a product or a project. And then we have all of our fun channels. And once people realize, okay, this is the taxonomy for the channels, and I know that I'm allowed to create a fun channel about whatever it is I'm interested in, I think people went wild and good. You know what I mean? It's what makes coming to work every day so fun, is to have your work that you're passionate about, but also have the people that share that same interest and personal passion as well.
Yeah, I agree. Because sometimes it could be hard to disconnect when you're remotely as well. You end up working more potentially if you're in the office, because then there's like a cutoff which doesn't really exist in remote land. I have a question. With a community built around a product, is there a process to submit product ideas based off of what the community is asking for and saying? If so, what is that process to submit product roadmap ideas?
So this is a big question and a big answer. And
we have time.
Regardless of where you set up your community, what rules you set up, if you told everybody no feature requests, they're going to happen. They surface in all kinds of ways, whether there's somebody directly asking, hey, I want this, I want to see it on the roadmap, or somebody having a conversation only to realize what they need is actually a feature request. So feature requests are inevitable. But what we don't want to do is open up the floor to say, yes, give us your feature requests if we're not ready to handle it as a community team and we're not ready to handle it as a company. So right now, the state of our community is that if a feature request surfaces, which right now we recommend, if you have a feature request, go to our support team, because that's how we log them. We don't want it to always be like that, but that's what it is now. But if it surfaces in community, we'll go ahead and go through the logging system on their behalf. There is this feature called ideation that allows people to have a separate space in the forum, vote on ideas. I'm sure so many of you have seen that. And then, somebody is managing the relationship of saying, yes, we're considering this idea. We're not considering this idea. We're working on this next. We're working on this now. And that is a process that we're working to establish. That's a relationship we're working to establish with our entire product org at Zapier. It requires so much more than just turning on ideation in the forum, because if you turn it on and you don't manage it, you're going to have a lot of unmanaged expectations and your community is just going to sink. It's going to fail. So right now we're working with our product team to make sure we even get to the spot where we're comfortable communicating what our roadmap is internally and being transparent about that. And what are some things that we can communicate externally versus things that have to stay internally, and how well are we able to stay on the commitments that we're making? Because once you tell that community you're working on something, if you decide you need to pull back, you need to stop, whatever, sometimes people aren't that forgiving because you've made the commitment to work on it. So long story short, we're working on building a solid relationship with the product team and a solid process with our product team. But we've been in conversations, to just give you like a timeline, all this year. And we're going to be in conversations about this all next year. And we probably won't be launching an official ideation section until 2022. And
Whoa.
part of that's about establishing the relationship. And the other part of that is volume as well. We don't have a big volume of feature requests right now because we have a way to handle it through support. But with a product like Zapier, we don't just have Zapier product requests, right? I expect to hear, yes, we want to duplicate steps. Yes, we want to reorder steps in the editor. Yeah, we know that. But being that we support 3,000 applications, are those requests going to be in there as well? That's a lot. That's a lot to handle. So we've got to grow our team in that process as well.
That's interesting to hear, especially from a company of the size of Zapier, just saying, okay, like this is where the line is, because I think it's easy to like work on everything. So to hear like that, like sort of focus, even when you get to that size, is like, okay, we should probably be focusing more, especially if you're like kind of at a stage before Zapier as well. Besides Zapier, what are the other tools and platforms do you and your team use to operate the community?
Yeah, so let's see. Zapier, InsideIt, Airtable. I'm not sure we use I mean, we use a lot of built-in, Zapier apps, if that counts, formatter, storage.
Slack, you mentioned Slack. You're
Yeah, Slack, absolutely. That's how we communicate and do almost everything in. We do use Jira to manage projects. The entire company is on Jira.
right.
So we're not like completely sold on it as like the best solution ever, but it does what we need it to do, and it's consistent with how other teams operate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see, we use Mural and Miro to do some brainstorming, depending on the type of brainstorming we need to do or
Yep.
who's involved. And Coda. Coda is a big one. We keep all of our policy and procedure documentation,
Ah,
our project specs, things like that in there.
interesting.
Um, we use we use Google Calendar a ton
Mhm.
at Zapier, but our team specifically uses Clockwise. It's an add-on for Google Calendar, and it helps sync up all of our calendars and tries to give us more focused time. So if it sees that somebody could, if we moved a meeting from here to earlier, this person could spend 2 hours on a task rather than broken time,
Hmm.
then it will sync and it will make automatic calendar adjustments and recommendations for the team.
Whoa,
So we're able to
I
be as
like it.
efficient as possible.
That was called Clockwise, was it?
Yeah, Clockwise. It's an add-on for Google Calendar, and
I like that one.
that's been pretty
That
sweet.
sounds
Yeah.
that sounds interesting, and also Coda is interesting because I know there's a bit of a debate going on in the no-code space about Coda versus Notion, and obviously
Yes.
as we are automators of work, then Coda takes the biscuit for that one at the moment.
Yeah, that's why we're on there as well. Notion's wonderful for like writing and page templates and things like that. Like
Hmm.
I'm also a fan of Notion, and I use it on the side a bit. But yeah, because Coda is more like a doc that is an app, we find that we can
Yep.
do a bit more with it.
Nice. If you were to start a community around an interest of yours outside of Zapier today, what would you use tool-wise and how would you go about it?
What would I use tool wise, and how would I go about it? Let's see. First, what would I start a community about? I'm really into van life. I'm into minimalism, things like that, meditation. But I probably wouldn't, if I was just going to start a community based on a single interest. I probably wouldn't go ahead by myself and set up
Mhm.
InsideIt. That's definitely more robust and meets our Zapier needs.
Okay.
But I got to be honest. From when you were showing me Circle, that looked really cool. I would definitely check that out. But I think before that, I think sometimes the easiest way to find people and get that initial engagement is to start a Facebook group. Like I think that's a great way to kind of build that traffic, and then when you need more structure and organization, to move
Interesting.
over to an easier platform. Although I'm not a fan of social media personally, so it would be a stretch for me to force myself to go on Facebook to have a group. But I have noticed that other groups I've joined have been pretty successful in building community. Like ClickUp, I'm sure you're familiar with ClickUp.
Mhm.
They have a wonderful Facebook community, and the engagement there is really, really great, and they run it well, in my opinion.
So you would start on Facebook. Is that just purely for network effects and be able to reach more people to start with before kind of moving them into a private community?
Yeah, because I wouldn't have any, if I'm starting and I'm just starting my own presence in my own company and I don't really have anything yet, right? Like
Yeah.
Zapier, like we have a presence, so we can take a little bit more of a risk of pulling away from Facebook and moving to a structured community because we have this huge user base already that we can kind of,
Hmm.
invite into there. But if it was just me, myself, my own interests, and I had nothing, yeah, I would probably start on Facebook.
And you mentioned previously that Zapier's community started on Facebook. At what point did it move off in terms of numbers wise? Do you remember? Is that a
Yeah,
different?
I don't recall because like I said, it was kind of like a half managed Facebook group, and I wasn't working in other areas of the company at that time. This is long before I even started the experts program.
Hmm.
Um, and then they were like, yeah, we have this community. We're not really managing it. I'm like, well, I know that we're not digging into global community at that time. We're just doing experts. So then I started looking at all the other user created Zapier based communities on Facebook because there are like, 3 or 4 pretty big ones with a couple thousand members, if I'm
Mhm.
remembering correctly. And then just kind of using that, for inspiration. But yeah, I couldn't give you the numbers on. We
Got it.
didn't move over when things reached a certain size. We
Yeah.
we moved over based on our needs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges on the community side that Zapier are facing right now?
Oh, probably engagement. We have a lot of folks that come to community and they ask a question and they get an answer and then they don't come back. And they don't come back for a couple of reasons. One, they only came there to ask a question, right? Their whole that's how we have guided them to community. We said, oh, you have a problem, we'll give you an answer, go away. The other part is sometimes because we haven't really created a lot of awareness with community throughout the product experience, throughout the customer experience. Sometimes users don't remember how to get back to community, which is something that surfaced in some recent research that we were doing on why our engagement wasn't climbing in the ways that we wanted it to. So our challenge right now is to figure out the best places to surface community throughout that experience, and also making sure that we're helping cultivate the right intentions for community, right? We don't just want people to come there, ask a question, and go away. Like, we need people there that want to answer questions as well. We need people that want to share really cool workflows, and we need people that want to consume really cool workflows. We need people that are so interested in Zapier that they can't wait to find out what the next best thing is, that want to help other people to rise in the ranks, to join our super user program and get access to beta functionality and testing new features. You know what I mean? So it's like we have the infrastructure right there, but right now we're working on getting the right resourcing from the rest of the company to proliferate that experience and really kind of create that awareness for our community.
And have you got any structure or process for turning maybe engaged users into super users? And do you have like a way of identifying those people? Do you do it through engagement, through replies? How do you kind of find those people?
Sure. So we have a gamification structure set up. So InsideIt has wonderful gamification features, and we have set up rankings based on things like um, uh, topics posted, replies, likes given, likes received, logins, answered questions. I won't give you the exact numbers because that's a very easy way to game the system. But basically, it's set up so the more helpful you are, whether you're helping people by liking their posts or answering their questions or whatnot,
Yeah.
or people are liking what you're sharing, right? And you're posting more topics and things like that, you will naturally rise in the ranks. And we do have
Hmm.
somebody on our team, Liz, who is in charge of our super user program, and she'll actually pay attention to users that are maybe rising in like replies, but maybe a little slower on topics or whatever. And then she'll reach out to those folks and be like, hey, like I've noticed like your community contribution has been great here. And like, we'd love to get you into our super user program. And like, these are the things that you need to do. And more often than not, it's kind of around content sharing and posting more topics. So she'll go ahead and work with Nick on our team, who kind of facilitates all of our community content, and see if they can partner together to release something to the community that we can feature and that they feel good about, and that helps kind of set the stage of wanting to create more content for us. So
really like the gamification side. It's something we are starting to think about as like trying to unify information between people who like log in through the site, because we have user generated content on the website, and then we also have the circle community. So it's kind of in two different places. So we're trying to figure out how to best figure that part out, which is trickier when you start built without code and using various platforms. But yeah, that's great. I really like that. And just like the leaderboard, Circle actually gives you those metrics in there. So that's good. Is there like a point or something which has worked really well for those people who maybe reach your super user program that kind of gets them, what am I trying to say? It gets them to a point where they are like an ingrained member of the Zapier community? Is there like a reward scheme in your super user program that kind of makes them really incentivized to answer questions?
Yeah, so there's a leveling system here where it's your basic ranks and then your super user and then your external moderator program. You can't join our external moderator program until you've achieved super user status, because we want to make sure that on your own you're going to be an engaged community member. So in regards to super user rewards, we have some like surprise rewards. So I don't want to say all of them on this call, but you kind of get a little something when you achieve super user status. And you also, this is still like a new program as well, and we are just standing up a separate private category for our super users where we can offer them that beta access and insights and talking to members of the Zapier team that they otherwise wouldn't have had access to. So it's more of like an access and like swag type of perk. However, if they keep going and they reach 1,000 points, so if they're a super user and they reach 1,000 points in community, they get qualified for the external moderator program. And we kind of take people in based on need. And then at that point, depending on the level of moderation tier, they'll get Zapier credit, so they'll get, a free starter account or a professional account or our top tiers, free team accounts and things like that. And also they get to be included in some of our community meetings and like our audit meetings. So they're working directly with us. They're in a private Slack channel with us. They have literally direct connection to our team. And a lot of folks really like that, being able to just pop in and be like, so, duplicating steps, that comes up in the community a lot. Where are we at with that? Being able to just ask that directly and get a clear answer. That's a great perk as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great idea. We might pinch that one off you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to help if, taking this offline and talking through some of the structure.
Absolutely. That'd be awesome. Okay. Final question. Let's say if you were somebody in the chat or watching the replay of this and you're building a new community on a new project, maybe you've got a place for it where you're going to try and get people in, what would be the one thing that you would focus on starting out? This could be either you're building a business or a product. How would you approach community from the bottom up? What's the number one most important point in your eyes?
Like, what would I do first if somebody just said, I need to build a community?
What would you focus your time on doing?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would do to try to collect interest. So before I even launch the community, I'd probably have, a sign up form to collect interest. But in regards to building the community itself, I think I try to think of what I could offer my members that they can't really get anywhere else. Like, that was a big part of building the Zapier community. It's like, why come to the Zapier community when you can just join this Facebook Zapier-based community started by somebody else that has 5,000 members, that you see all the engagement. And it's like, well, what that community will never have is that direct insight into the company. You know what I mean? When things are coming, new features that you want to know about before anyone else. Like we hold that power and control. So I would really start thinking of what can I offer my members that they're not going to be able to get anywhere else, and I guess start there.
I think that is a great tip. And I think that also that's a wonderful place to wrap as well.
Awesome.
Jesse, thank you very, very much again for being so generous with your time. Really, really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else will. And I'm definitely going to pick your brains about some of the things brought up here. I've been taking notes also.
Awesome. Sounds great. No, it was my pleasure. And I really appreciate y'all having me on and inviting me to speak about my experience with community. And I hope that this is helps some people in their own community journey.
Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll speak to you again soon.
For sure. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Jesse.
Bye-bye.
Bye.